He remembered the first time the desert night felt wrong because the air did not feel like normal air anymore. It felt like a kind of quiet electricity. And he was not even a person who believed in strange things or in secret life or in hidden visitors from space. But even his simple mind felt that something was not normal. And he worked at a radio array deep in the desert land where there were more sand dunes than cars, and the nearest town was far away. And the only people he met every day were the same few technicians who had grown bored of life and bored of conversation and bored of listening to the quiet sky. He sat inside the control room that had a smell of dust. Old books, solder, plastic, burned cable, and cheap coffee that always tasted worse every week. His shift was the late shift, and the late shift was boring. And he only had to watch the screen and make sure the signals that were collected from deep space did not go off-grid again. And sometimes the software would break, so he would have to restart the servers and hope they did not crash again. He was tired of a life that felt the same, and he sometimes wished something would happen, something exciting, something that made his heart move like when he was a child. But he never knew that night was going to be that night. He never thought he would become a witness to something beyond normal human life. He looked at the screens at the control desk and he saw a strange wave pattern that did not match natural space dust static. It did not match the usual radio burst from stars or pulsars. It felt like a voice pattern, like someone or something was speaking, but speaking in a language that was not human, yet still mapped as structured language with rhythm and logic. He called the other technician and asked him to look, and the other technician said, "This is nothing." Probably reflection from the communication satellite, but the structure did not match a satellite reflection. The structure matched something that sounded like conversation, so he recorded the sample and sent it to the hidden black badge server that lived behind the firewall layer that only the secret agencies used. And that was when the night changed. Because after he sent the sample, the door opened, and in walked men wearing badges he never saw before. These men did not belong to the normal base, and they did not say where they came from. They just said, "We need the raw capture," and he gave it to them. They connected equipment he never saw before. They attached fiber and military-grade decoding boxes to the feed. And suddenly more cars arrived outside, and he saw a jet in the sky that did not look like any known aircraft because it had no sound. He knew it had no sound because there was a silence. Hum, like muted thunder. The new team took over the room and everyone was told to move away and not speak. And the new team played the signal and amplified it and cleaned it and filtered it. And soon the voice pattern became clearer. Not human, but still speaking, like someone who was alive and aware, and the voice said, "We measure our fleet capability by war class, yield density, not by distance or jump speed." And the team looked at each other with serious faces, because that was not something a natural cosmic signal would say. That was someone describing warships. This voice was not one voice. There were 5 separate patterns, 5 different speakers, 5 different alien signatures. And each voice sounded proud and arrogant, like they had lived war for so long it became just a normal part of life for them. It was like 5 rich men comparing their expensive cars, but instead they were comparing space battleships. And the humans in the room were silent because none of them expected that deep space would send such clear content. And the operator felt his heart shake because he realized this was a moment in human history that was not supposed to be possible. He felt a strange shame because he used to believe the world was boring and small, but now he saw that the universe was loud and filled with life, and that humans had been blind for too long. And these alien voices were not just talking. They were bragging like they wanted someone to listen and hear their top power, and maybe feel small in comparison. But the team in the room did not speak. They did not send reply, they just listened because they knew if they spoke too fast, they might reveal weakness. And the command staff from the highest level of the country arrived not by road but by air, black, badged secret flyers, and this confirmed for him that this signal was real. He was not dreaming this, and this was not a prank or a glitch system error. This was something very real. The commander told all base staff to sit back and keep quiet, and the base went into silent mode, and the alien voices kept describing their battleships. One voice carried a strange tonal pitch like a deep metallic whistle, and that voice said, "Our main ship can remove life from a star if we need to, but we only do this for demonstration. We do not do this for revenge unless we must." And another voice said, "Our third-class carriers have beam arrays that can clear a planetary orbital defense system in less than a minute," and they spoke like this was normal speech, and no one in the room moved or coughed, because they did not want to break the moment, and nobody wanted the aliens to think they were afraid or weak. He was not a scientist, he was not an agent, he was just a normal technician. But he could feel in his heart that he was standing on the edge of something huge, maybe bigger than the moon landing, maybe bigger than the first invention of fire, because this was the first time Earth accidentally stumbled into the private conversation of beings that had more experience with war and space than any human military could even imagine. And he thought about how small humans were, and how humans fight. Over land and oil and simple things, when out there others fight with star-sized weapons and with powers that can damage whole systems. He looked around the room and he saw that every face was pale, like they were trying to hide fear and hide shock and pretend to be strong. But inside he knew every heart was racing, because deep down, everyone knew that this was not a joke, and this could change everything on Earth forever. And he realized that from this moment the world was no longer quiet anymore, and the universe was no longer silent, and humans were no longer alone. And the night he once thought would be boring became the night he would never forget. He remembered how the 5 alien voices grew clearer and stronger in the control room as the new team ran more filters and more signal cleaners and more deep pattern modules that he did not even recognize, because some of the hardware looked like it came from companies that did not exist in public life. And he watched the men in the dark jackets connect cables with hands that never shook even once, because they had trained for this kind of situation. And now the voices were not random tones anymore. They were structured like people talking about their expensive ships, and they were not shy at all. They bragged without shame, and they never paused to consider if someone was listening, because they clearly believed that they were superior to any other intelligent species in the universe. And one voice said, "My war cruiser is 6 planetary diameters long, and its hull armor can survive the gravitational crush of a neutron star without fracture." And another voice laughed in a sound that was half whistle, half growl. And that voice said, "Your war cruiser is nothing compared to my Dread Star, because my Dread Star carries weapons that can erase the sky dust of a whole solar system in one rotation. Sweep." And the room full of human experts heard this, and nobody knew how to react, because every single human Air Force vessel, and every single stealth bomber, and every classified craft suddenly felt like a children's toy in comparison. And the aliens talk so casually, like they were in some kind of social gathering where rich people compare houses or cars or jewelry. And the humans were silent, not because someone told them to be silent, but because their minds were shocked and frozen and unsure how to even think in that moment. And the operator, who was just a normal technician, felt his heart shaking again and again, because he never expected his life to suddenly become witness to a conversation that was not meant for humans at all. And one alien voice sounded older and deeper with more echo, like it spoke from inside a metal chamber, and this voice said, "My battleship has 7 quantum shield layers and can teleport its mass in micropulses across star gravity curves in less than 1 human breath." And then a second alien voice corrected him with arrogance and said, "We do not compare by shield, we compare by damage density yield, because yield is the true measure of a war fleet." And then a third alien voice cut in and bragged that it once destroyed an enemy planet cluster without even aiming, because sometimes the shots are so strong that they do damage even when the weapon is pointed the wrong way. And the humans heard this, and their minds tried to measure these ships, but they could not even imagine them. And some scientists looked at their monitors and whispered that this must be some kind of exaggeration. But then the signal tech ran a frequency authenticity analysis, and the analysis said the voices were not lying, because the pattern signature of truth and confidence in their tone matched a non-human truth structure. And this made the scientists go silent again, because now the exaggeration theory was gone, and the arrogance of the aliens was real. And one voice kept saying that his ship could bend dark matter in the shape of a wave weapon, and another said his ship could fold cosmic space and trap enemy fleets in a gravity cage, where time stretches and all ships age and crumble in seconds, which is the most humiliating defeat, because you never even fire your primary guns. And the aliens kept speaking like this for minutes. And the human command team took notes on advanced holographic pads, and they sent some of the signal packets to upper command in real time. And the operator watched these files jump through encrypted channels, and he realized that every level of secret government was waking up at this hour. because this moment was not small. This moment was beyond anything humans had prepared for, and he noticed that the alien voices did not once mention fear or caution or humility. They spoke like champions in a sport where they had already won 100 wars, and they spoke as if other species were just background decoration, and sometimes they even sounded bored by their own power. And the arrogance in their voices made the humans even more uneasy because arrogance is usually how predators talk, not explorers, and one alien voice said he remembered when his fleet removed a rogue Empire culture from a nearby spiral. And he said it was not even a serious fight because the rogue Empire had shields that were so weak that they broke like water. And another alien voice said his favorite war memory was when they shot a star so bright that it turned into beautiful raining glass which looked pretty but also killed billions, and he laughed. And the laugh had no empathy inside it at all, and the humans listened, and some humans felt sick, because this kind of cold attitude toward life was hard to accept, and the operator felt fear in a way he had never felt before. Not because they were describing violence, but because they were describing violence like it was normal, like it was casual, like it meant nothing. And he remembered thinking that if these aliens discovered Earth and saw humans with simple weapons and small ships and tiny rockets, they would probably laugh in the same cold way because human weapons would look like preschool slingshot toys to them. And the team in the room waited and waited, and none of them dared to speak because they all wanted to hear more. They wanted to learn, even though it hurt their pride. And the aliens kept bragging, and one voice said that the smallest ship in his fleet was the size of a planet moon and had guns that could punch holes in the heart of a star, while using only 1% of its weapon energy. And another alien voice bragged that his flagship had 10,000 crew, and all of them were war-born, so their first memory in life was a battle simulation. And their first food was given only after they passed a combat test, and the humans shook inside, because this was a culture built on war from birth, and war as identity, and they began to understand that these beings treated battle the same way humans treat family tradition, and the operator realized that he was listening to the loud pride of civilizations that existed in a war scale beyond anything humans could picture. And he wanted to look away from the monitor, but he could not because he was trapped in awe and fear and fascination, and he noticed that the alien voices were not trying to frighten anyone, because they did not even think anyone was listening. They were simply bragging to each other like 5 top elites comparing their trophies. And this was what made it more frightening because they were not putting on a show. They were just being themselves. And if this was normal for them, then that meant that the universe was a dangerous place filled with ancient war cultures, and humans were a soft young species that barely learned to walk in cosmic terms. And the operator felt the weight of that truth, and he looked at his coworker, and his coworker looked back, and both men did not need words because they both knew that the world they understood before this night was gone forever, and humans were now in a new cosmic reality. Whether they liked it or not, and the aliens kept bragging for more. Minutes in the control room remained silent because even the bravest general in the room did not dare to speak and risk making contact in the wrong way. Because these were not explorers with gentle minds. These were empire builders and destroyers, and they had destroyed star systems like humans crush ants on a sidewalk. And that is how part of him realized that this was not only a discovery moment, but also a warning moment, because a culture that speaks like this does not negotiate with fear, they negotiate with strength, and sometimes they do not negotiate at all. And he felt a deep cold ache in his spine as the alien voices continued comparing their war trophies, and he wondered if humans would ever have the courage to tell the world what they heard tonight, or if all of this would be hidden behind secret walls forever until the day the aliens finally decide to appear in the sky above Earth and talk about their battleships face to face with humans who still fight over land like children in a sandbox. And none of the aliens paused to think that their words might be shocking to anyone, because they believed they were speaking among equals. But they were not. They were speaking to humans who did not even have the right language to reply yet. And in this moment, the operator understood that the arrogance of the aliens was not the frightening part. The frightening part was that the arrogance was justified because they truly had ships that could rewrite the sky, and humans were not ready for such neighbors, and this single truth struck him so deeply inside that even years later, he would still wake up in the middle of the night and hear their voices in his memory, bragging and laughing and discussing weapons that could erase worlds like dust. And in those quiet moments he would remember that night in the desert, when 5 alien war commanders casually compared their battleships in front of stunned, silent human listeners who were too shocked to even breathe. He remembered how every human in the control room that night understood the same thing at the same time, because the 5 alien voices kept speaking. But not a single human in the room dared to send a reply because nobody wanted to say the wrong sentence and risk starting a war by accident. And the operator could see the fear hide behind steady faces because the generals and the government specialists were trying to act calm, but their fingers were tight and their breathing was slow and controlled because this moment was not just historic. It was dangerous, and the aliens had no idea that humans were listening. They bragged in pure blind confidence like kings speaking about treasure in a private room because they believed no other species could understand their language or detect their signal. But humans were listening thanks to a classified translator engine that had been built in secret for many years. Not because humans expected aliens to speak, but because humans wanted to be ready for a moment just like this, and now that moment had arrived and the translator was working. And the operator realized that this was probably the first direct alien communication in human history. But the aliens did not know it, and that made the moment even more tense because the safest move was to stay quiet and gather information and wait for a more controlled moment to reveal that humans existed and could hear them. And so the colonels and the data chiefs and the silent intelligence officers ordered everyone to stay quiet and only listen because listening was power and silence was safety. And if they spoke too early, it could be read as panic, weakness, or disrespect. And these alien warriors had no patience for weakness because they only respected power and victory and technology and war experience. And so, for hours, the humans just sat there with headphones and signal screens and data boards, while the 5 alien commanders continued to brag about their different battleships and the weapons they carried and the wars they fought in the past and the territories they conquered. And to the aliens, this was a normal discussion, like 5 old soldiers remembering their glory. But to the humans, it was beyond anything they ever imagined, and one general whispered, "Do not engage," and another whispered, "Maintain total radio silence," because the humans understood one hard truth. It is better to be a quiet unknown than a weak known danger. And so they listened. The alien voices kept going, and the humans wrote down every word in quiet encrypted logs, and one alien voice said that it liked battles in black hole zones because the gravity made the destruction look more artistic, and another alien voice bragged that once it used its ship to break a ring of planets in half, just so it could use the broken planet shards as ammunition to shoot another enemy fleet. And the humans listened shocked, because this kind of cruelty had no empathy inside it. And 2 engineers looked at each other with a strange shame, because humans fight over simple things, and here were 5 alien veterans who used planets as bullets, and there were no emotional responses, just pride and nostalgia. And some scientists wondered if the aliens even understood mercy, or if mercy was a concept that died in their culture many ages ago. And the operator watched his own reflection in the dark glass of the control panel, and he saw fear in his own eyes, but also a strange feeling of pride, because at least humans were smart enough to stay quiet, because silence was control and silence was strategy. And silence meant that humans could learn about the enemy before the enemy even knew humans existed, and information is always the first stage of survival in war. And the team learned more than they expected because the aliens were not trying to hide any secret. They spoke openly about their ship speeds and their weapon strengths and their defense technology and their warp drive, range, and even their crew numbers because they thought only other superpowerful civilizations would be able to hear them and decode them. And they thought humans were not one of those civilizations, but they were wrong, because humans had quietly evolved their decoding tools far beyond what most people on Earth even knew. And some of the equipment in that room was never shown to any normal government or any normal military, because it belonged to secret divisions run by silent groups that did not answer to public law. And those groups had been preparing for signals like this since long before the operator was even born. And the operator realized that this moment was the exact reason those secret groups existed, because now they could observe alien war doctrine without revealing themselves. And he saw that the generals were calm on the outside, but inside they were creating scenarios, planning defense ideas, imagining counter-strategies, imagining What would happen if these alien war fleets ever pointed their weapons at Earth? And the air in the room felt thick like invisible pressure, and he felt like breathing required more strength than usual, because his body was reacting to stress, even if his mind was trying to stay still. And the alien voices began discussing the concept of honor in battle, and that was the most shocking part, because their idea of honor was not like humans think. Honor means fairness or bravery, or moral code. But to them, honor meant total destruction of the enemy with maximum display of power. And they said that honor meant ending a war in one strike and never letting the opponent have a second chance to fight, because allowing a second chance was seen as an insult to the value of war. And the humans listened and realized that these aliens were not peaceful explorers. They were ruthless empire forces, and if they ever came to Earth, they would not respect flags or languages or diplomacy. They would only respect power and victory. And he thought about how small Earth was and how humans argued about small things every day. And he thought about how the big nations on Earth sometimes brag about military power. But now those big nations looked small and weak compared to these alien empires, and he realized that Earth was not the top of anything, and humanity was a child race. And he wondered if maybe humans should be glad that they were keeping quiet tonight, because these aliens had no idea Earth existed, and sometimes it is better to be unseen than to be noticed by giants who destroy planets for entertainment. And he wondered if the human silence would last, or if someday someone would break the rule and send a signal back to them, and maybe start the most dangerous moment in history. Because once humans speak, there is no going back, and the universe will know we are here. And that might be the moment everything changes forever. He remembered the moment when the voices suddenly changed tone, because up until then, the 5 alien commanders had only been bragging to each other as if they were in a private lounge of great warriors who knew they were at the top of the universe, food chain. And as if every other species was something to step over, not something to talk to. And the humans in the desert control room had only listened in silence like statues, because they knew any reply might be taken the wrong way and might start something terrible, something humans could not stop. But then one alien voice spoke in a curious bright tone that was different from the bragging tone they had been using before, and this voice asked, "Where is the flagship of your species?" And this was the moment when everything in the control room shifted, like someone pulled oxygen out of the building, because the humans realized the aliens knew someone was listening, because the aliens would not ask that question to nobody, and the operator felt his heart freeze because his whole body understood in one flash that silence might not protect them anymore, because the aliens had sensed them or scanned them, or maybe they had known even before the humans tapped into their signal, or maybe they had known humans were listening the entire time and had allowed them to listen because they were curious, or because they were mocking them. And 5 military analysts leaned closer to their screens because the alien question was not spoken in a playful tone but in a demanding tone, like a challenge, like a proud king asking a smaller tribe to bring forward their best champion. And the operator realized that in their culture, this was a normal thing to do, because showing war strength was how they respected each other, and in their world, respect was not given for peace or kindness or negotiation. Respect was only given to power, and the alien commander wanted to see Earth's best war machine so he could measure it, and compare it, and maybe laugh at it, or maybe take it seriously. But he wanted to see it, and the room went cold because the humans knew Earth did not have anything close to their level, not even near, not even in secret human war tech. And the operator glanced at the general, and the general shook his head, not in fear but in deep thought, like his mind was spinning faster than time itself. And the general looked like he was choosing something heavy, something risky, and he whispered to 2 intelligence officers who walked to the back secure cabinet and unlocked a black case with layered biometric seals. And the operator felt small because he realized that the secret tech arsenal of Earth contained things that regular science never heard about, and some craft that were so advanced that even space agency engineers would think they were impossible. And the general said in a low, hard voice that if they send words, they might sound weak, but if they send nothing, they might sound scared. And he said the only way to not look like prey is to answer with something that cannot be mistaken or misread or misinterpreted, because war cultures do not read poems. War cultures read strength, and so they prepared one message to send, not a sentence, not a greeting, not a negotiation, not a diplomatic opening, but a visual display of their most classified demonstration flight, which was something even many high-ranked people on Earth never knew existed, and the craft in that recording could move, like nothing humans had shown in public life, because it did not use rocket exhaust and it did not push air aside, and it did not obey normal flight physics. It jumped from one point in the air to another point without any motion between, and its acceleration was not limited by inertia, and all the sensors in the room blinked red because this part of the event was not supposed to happen this early. But the general took responsibility because he said silence was safe until they asked a direct question. But now they asked a direct question, and to ignore it would make humans look like small prey animals who hide under rocks. And these 5 alien commanders did not respect small prey animals. They ate them, and so the file was prepared. And the operator watched as the intelligence officer activated a transmitter that sent only one single packet, containing only one single short file that showed their top craft, performing impossible directional shifts and impossible 0 to maximum speed jumps in open sky. And the instant that video file was sent, there was a moment in the room that felt like someone pressed pause on the entire universe, because for one heartbeat none of them knew how the aliens would react. And then the voices stopped talking and the aliens went silent, not like they were bored but like they were shocked, and they did not brag and they did not laugh and they did not insult. They just stopped, and the weight of that silence felt heavier than the bragging did, because the operator understood that if powerful war creatures become silent, it means something important happened in their minds. And this was the first moment the aliens had ever seen anything from Earth that did not look weak. And one alien voice finally spoke, and the tone was different. And the tone had a kind of wonder inside it, like someone who was forced to change their map of the world because they found something that did not belong. And the alien asked, "What is the energy source that drives that craft?" Because that was not warp, and that was not classic quantum compression, and that was not normal dark matter spin. And the alien said that movement was something they did not have in their knowledge base, and for the first time the arrogance in their voices was not there. And the humans in the room looked at each other because they never expected that a simple clip of a small human craft would make these powerful alien warlords stop bragging and start asking questions. And the general did not reply to the alien question, because he knew that silence now was even more important than before. Because the alien question was not a threat. It was curiosity. And curiosity is the first doorway to fear. Because when a powerful predator sees something they cannot explain, their mind begins to step back and recalculate danger, and the operator felt something new in the air. It was not fear anymore. It was something like pride, but not normal pride. It was the pride of knowing that humans were not just ants in this universe, that humans had built something that could make even ancient warlords pause, and that one small demonstration of power could make 5 alien empires stop mid-sentence and rethink their assumptions. And he realized that Earth had just changed its position in the universe in 1 second, and everything that came after would depend on what happened next. And every breath he took felt heavy, like history was sitting on his shoulders, and the silence between them and the aliens was now no longer a silence of weakness, it was a silence of mystery and unknown strength. And in that moment he saw in the general's eyes that they had done something very dangerous but also very necessary, and the operator knew that even if humanity did not want to join the cosmic stage, they had already stepped on it, and there was no way back now, because 5 alien commanders had just been forced to consider humans as a species with unpredictable power. He remembered how the desert control room felt like the center of the universe after the silent packet was transmitted, because the 5 alien voices stopped bragging and stopped laughing and stopped describing their giant warships and their star-killing weapons, and instead they went quiet like children who just saw something they could not explain. And the humans in the room did not cheer and did not celebrate because they were too shocked to even blink normally. And the operator felt that strange electric pressure in his skull again. But this time it was not fear of being weak. This time, it was fear of being unpredictable, because unpredictable is more dangerous than weak. And even those alien war commanders understood this, because they could crush weak species without effort. But unpredictable species could change the whole board in one move, and the operator could see the general watching the signal graph with the eyes of a man who finally realized that humanity had climbed onto a higher branch on the cosmic tree, and nothing in their lives would ever be simple again. But the humans still refused to speak, because they knew that silence was now a weapon, because silence meant, we do not need to explain ourselves, and silence meant we know more than we show. And silence meant we are not scared to make you wait. And the aliens spoke again. But this time their tone was careful, and their words did not brag anymore. And one alien voice sounded like it was calculating in real time, as if it was trying to reverse engineer the human craft just from the short packet. And it asked, what is the core of your engine, and what kind of spatial skin do you put around that thing, because its movement signature does not match warp or mass slide or gravity bend. And the operator felt a strange pride, because this alien was not just curious. This alien was confused and powerful. Predators do not like confusion. And another alien voice said, perhaps, this species hides more than it shows. And a third alien voice said, if this species has more ships like this, then they might not be prey in the future. And the fourth voice asked, how many worlds has this species conquered? Which was a funny question, because humans had barely reached their own moon with real boots and only had machines on Mars. But the aliens assumed that if someone built a craft that moved like that, then that species must be a conqueror of many systems, because no young or naive species would even have the mental maturity to build something like that. And the operator wanted to laugh, but he could not, because his jaw felt locked by shock, and he just stood there listening to the aliens trying to make sense of something. Humans secretly achieved, and the general leaned closer to the main mic and whispered, do not send any more packets and do not answer any question, because we have already given them one surprise, and one surprise is enough. And if we give more, they will begin to measure us more accurately. And the operator agreed inside his head, because mystery is a shield. A very strong shield, especially when your enemy thinks you are stronger than you really are. And in his mind, he thought of this silent moment as the moment where humanity for the first time in history chose strategy, with the universe not emotion and not curiosity and not panic, but actual strategy, because to stay silent when your mind screams to speak is a kind of intelligence very few people ever master. And the alien voices continued to ask questions, but the humans gave nothing in return, and the aliens began to talk among themselves again. But this time, they did not brag about battles. They analyzed the unknown craft, and they argued about what kind of output could cause that kind of acceleration curve, and one alien voice said only a species who has broken the fear of space-time pressure can do that. And another said, if they can break the fear of pressure, they can break the fear of war. And the operator looked at the team, and every single human had the same silent thought inside their face. The aliens were not laughing anymore. And this was the strange thing that made the moment feel heavier, because when an arrogant warrior stops laughing, it means they have started to respect something, and that something is usually a threat or a challenge. And the operator knew that the world outside that room would keep living in normal life the next morning. People would buy breakfast bread and complain about the price of fuel and worry about small things like bills and cars and bills again. And no one would know that on this night 5 alien commanders stopped bragging because of one 2-second clip of a secret human craft that moved like magic or like future or like something from a fantasy tale. And he felt like he was living 2 lives at the same time, the life of a normal human who once felt bored, and the life of a witness to the moment when humanity turned a page in the universe book and proved that Earth was not just a small blue rock, but a place where dangerous ideas could be built in silence. And the general spoke again in a low voice and said, nobody in this room will speak. About this night, no one will mention this to any contact or any report that is not in the sealed chain. Because the moment any normal human knows about this, they will panic, and panic will ruin strategy. And strategy is the only shield we have against something that uses planets like stones. And he knew the general was right. Because if the public knew aliens existed, and that they had ships that could break stars or crush planets like fruit, people would not go to work on Monday. People would scream and hide and lose their minds. And he wondered if humans will ever be ready to learn the truth about the universe without their minds breaking. And the alien voices eventually went quiet, not because they left, but because they needed to think and think again. And in that eerie silence that returned to the control room, the operator realized that humans had done something no species ever should do. Accidentally, they impressed a creature that had destroyed star systems. And the operator did not know if this was victory or suicide, but he knew something for sure. He knew that this universe was not gentle, and not peaceful, and not empty. And he knew that humans were not the weakest life in existence. And he knew that this moment was the beginning of something that would grow in the dark future. And he felt small and giant at the same time because now the universe had noticed Earth, and curiosity had been born in the hearts of war kings who do not forget anything they see. He remembered how the room did not celebrate or cheer or clap, because nobody wanted the aliens to think humans were proud or excited or naive. And nobody even breathed loudly because every single person inside that control center understood that silence itself had now become a weapon. And the operator felt like a child hiding in a forest while 5 giant monsters paused on the other side of the trees, trying to figure out if the small creature they just sensed was harmless or secret, deadly. And the armored war voices of those 5 alien commanders did not brag anymore because bragging is for when you feel stronger, but questions are for when you feel uncertain. And this small change in their tone meant more than 1,000 speeches, because even an ancient predator becomes afraid when it sees something new that does not match its old maps of power. And the operator realized this moment might be the closest thing to true history, because history is not made from television, news, or from public votes or from loud speeches. History is made in small, quiet, secret rooms, when one group learns something terrible or something powerful. And this time the terrible and the powerful came from the same source. And he watched as the silent packet playback file blinked on the classified monitor again and again, because the generals kept reviewing that short clip just to understand the full weight of what they had done, because they had told the universe that humans were not scared anymore, and that humans knew how to build something that even an alien war empire could not name. And the aliens still waited for a reply, but the general refused to send one because silence is sharper than 1,000 missiles when the enemy is thinking about what you are hiding. And the operator saw scientists writing notes in plain pencil because pens were banned in that level of the facility, since ink could be used to hide microdata. And he saw one scientist with shaking hands because she knew more about the physics inside that silent craft than any other person in the room. And she whispered to herself that the moment the public sees what that machine can do, the world will change faster than a heartbeat. And she was not talking about fear. She was talking about perspective, because humans think their planet is big until they see the universe. And humans think their weapons are strong until they hear aliens brag about splitting planets like fruit slices. Yet a tiny machine with a small human flag printed on a panel had just made 5 cosmic predators go silent. And that was something even the scientist could not fully process. And then, after a long, quiet pause, the aliens did something that shocked the room more than their bragging ever did. They disconnected the conversation and left without a single insult, or a single threat, or a single response, because that kind of disappearance was not a retreat. It was not fear. It was calculation, and that silence that followed was not weak. It was deep and heavy and dangerous, because now humanity was on their list of unknown threats, and unknown threats are never ignored. And the operator stared at the monitors, and the wave graph slowly fell back into cosmic static, and he realized that the bragging session was over. Not because the aliens grew tired, but because the story changed, and predators only brag when they feel there is no challenger worth measure.